I want to get through some political cope, so that's what we're gonna do today. I hope the audio doesn't sound too bad. It was kind of like echoing a little bit. It wasn't too bad in the last stream, but I'll try turning it down. Ideally, I would do this with headphones, but I am playing Cyberpunk right now. If you guys have played that game, pretty good so far. But I will say I'm at this sequence they call them the brain dance sequences. They're really stupid. It's honestly it's just puzzle BS in video games, and I hate puzzle BS in video games, so that's what I'm doing right now. But yeah, man, like, we're just getting through this. But I wanted to watch some political cope. I was in the mood, so I figured why not? I might as well go ahead and stream. Honestly, hopefully the audio's not bad. I'm gonna see.
In 1930,
I need to be able to hear though, guys.
In Germany that didn't just describe an ideology, it helped turn it into law. That book was A New Nobility of Blood and Soil by one Richard Walter Dare, a man whose extremist ideology and romantic prose would go on to inspire some of the most important people in the most infamous regime of the 20th century. Today, we're examining this book and understanding how extremist ideas move from romantic theory to real policy. Folks, I'm Vrillium, and today's episode is brought to you by UndergroundCanon.com, best place to get taboo and banned literature. More on that later. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, all those things influencers tell you to do. Let's break down this fascinating book. Now, Dare was not a street agitator or a party thug. He was educated, well-read, and deeply influenced by romantic nationalism, agrarian theory, and European race science, as many were at the time. I mean, this is the time in which academic movements like Aryanism and eugenics were incredibly popular. Now, Dare believed that Germany was in decline, not just because of the horrific economics, but because it had lost what he saw as a biological and spiritual connection to the land, to the Reich, to the realm. This belief and his writings on it would become the foundation of what we now know as blood and soil ideology. Blut und Boden, blood and soil. It's not just a slogan. It's a worldview built on three specific core claims. A people's biology, their blood, determines their character and their destiny. A people's land, the soil, shapes and preserves that biology and that destiny. 3, modern life, cities, industry, consumer culture, all these things, they decay or corrupt both. See, to Dare, the rural farmer wasn't just economically important. He was the racial and sort of identity foundation of the nation. One of the book's most unique and interesting ideas is Dare's rejection of traditional aristocracy. Mind you, this is a book coming after World War I, when all of the monarchies and aristocracies had kind of gone to shit. And so in place of that, Dare argues for a new nobility, hence the tagline in the book. He argues that titles don't matter, wealth and land ownership doesn't matter, and that even education is largely secondary. Instead, he proposes with his new nobility an elite class defined by ancestry, selective and intentional breeding, and a multi-generational attachment to the land. In his hierarchy, the farmer becomes king, not because of virtue or wisdom or ability to lead, but rather his biology and rootedness to the land. Before we break down more of this fascinating text, I'd like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor. Folks, you knew literature, both left of analyze the his app right messaging or ideology, but rather to get back into it. Now, the actual prose of the book is fascinating. It is deeply, deeply romantic. In it, Dare portrays city life as degenerate, rootless, and artificial. Urban life, in his view, breaks the natural bond between people and land. It, quote, encourages racial mixing. Oh, Christ, sorry. And replaces tradition with consumption. This framing matters because it transforms economic change into moral decay and proposes that sometimes difference can be degeneracy. Now, these ideas did not stay on paper. One Adolf Hitler was deeply, deeply influenced by Darius' work, and eventually appointed him as Minister of Food and Agriculture, which is fitting, I guess. During his time as Minister of Agriculture, he took his ideas and ran with them. German agricultural laws were completely reshaped. Land ownership was turned into a racial system. Settlement programs, as attached to Lebensraum, policy of expansion that marked Germany's conflicts at the time, prioritized settlement programs towards racially suitable farmers, and the introduction of bloodline documentation that became tied to property rights. It's absolutely fascinating that this guy, who was an academic and sort of romantic writer, would go on to take these ideas and turn them into real-life government policy. So what is the fascination with this book? What makes A New Nobility of Blood and Soil so fascinating? It doesn't read like a manifesto. I mean, mind you, this is a time of heavy ideological debate, a time in which academia and the public square were battleground.
Bruh, I'm sorry to interrupt. This, yeah, bruh. I hate puzzle sequences in video games. This shit is so stupid. This shit should literally just be skippable. I know in System Shock, like, they literally have separate difficulties where it's like, okay, you know, if you want like hard combat, you can have hard combat, but then you can have like brain dead easy puzzles. You know, if you want to be the motherfucker who has the hard puzzles, you can put the puzzles on hard. But like this, I mean, I was having a lot of fun with Cyberpunk literally up until they started doing this. This shit sucks, man. I'm sorry. Like I'm just yeah, this is not a I don't know who thought this would be like cool to implement in the game, bro. Like, they're not very good about giving you a tutorial about this, or I mean, yeah, this is like a huge low light on what's otherwise I think one of the best games, you know, and there's far and few between, like, so yeah, bro, this shit is ass. This is fucking ass. Like, bro, I genuinely like don't want to play this right now. Like, but you know, this is the good thing to do while I'm streaming though, because that way, you know, I'm gaming on my gaming laptop. I can just stream from my streaming laptop. It's kind of puts me at ease in a way, but man, like, I don't like, genuinely, bro, like, this game is shit. Like, they don't help you. They don't, dude, it's fine. It's fine when you're just driving around and, you know, you got to go on the shooting missions and you're just upgrading your, like, cyberware and stuff. But, like, oh, we're cyber detectives, guys. We're cyber detectives. This shit pissing me off right now. And I'm sorry I had to vent, but I appreciate you guys hearing me out. Holy crap.
Of debate about the future of a post-monarchy, post-imperial Europe. Long-winded, politically charged manifestos, like the Communist Manifesto. This was sort of the common standard for political writings. But Darius' book doesn't read like that. It's poetic, calm, sort of pastoral, and seemingly reasonable. It evokes a sense of romantic longing. I mean, I'm not German in like any way, and even I was reading it thinking, man, we gotta take back the Rhineland. There's no calls for violence. There's no calls for exclusion. There's only calls for preservation and hierarchy. It is a fascinating display of rhetoric. Today, obviously, the book is banned from basically everywhere for several reasons. Unpublished, restricted, and most famously, untranslated. Yes, this book was written in German, so it hadn't been translated until very recently, so even academia wasn't studying this book. It's understood now as an interesting showcase of the sort of mythos behind ideology. All political ideologies innately come with a mythos, both the ideal society they are striving for and the ideal society that was before us. Whether it's communists arguing for this stateless, classless society that they'll get to and lamenting the fall of the Soviet Union, or American nationalists, American fascists lamenting the death of the golden age of America and striving towards this sort of homogenous nationalist future. So you don't study a book like this to really influence modern understandings of economics or even agriculture. You read them to understand the mindset of the people at the time. Understanding Daria is not about simply understanding ideology, it's about understanding the past on a deeper level. So be sure to pick up your copy at undergroundcanon.com if you are the type who's into analyzing political history and looking to expand your knowledge. Folks, I'm Vrillium. This has been another great episode. Be sure to follow, like, subscribe, hit the bell, everything I always tell you to do. Feel free to join my Patreon.
Hopefully y'all got more out of that
me.
than I did. I finally passed this puzzle bullshit, but goddamn, I could barely even focus on my video.
The American people and Israel are going through a bit of a rough patch.
Jews are running society, women need to shut the fuck up, blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
I think it's safe to say that across the political spectrum, young people don't like Israel. They don't like foreign influence in their government, and so it seems that they only have a certain amount of time left in our government. Or they're going to have to start utilizing different measures to gain public support, or at least gain public unacknowledgement. This kind of leaves Israel with two different choices. Either they could try to re-win the hearts and minds of the American people, or they could just put all of them in jail. Welcome back to The Narrative, folks. It is me, your host, Vrillium. Super excited to see you all again. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, hit the bell to get notified whenever I make a post. Feel free to join the Telegram. All the things I tell you every video. If you're new here, welcome into my channel. If you're returning, welcome back. Folks, today I want to take a look at some videos that are circulating around X in a very, very concerning way, fearful way, I would say. See, the rhetoric surrounding Israel in America has gotten
Epstein fuck niggers!
negative, to say the least. Not really a surprise that things are going to have to change on the lobbying side for them to be able to still have the power that they have. Now, like I said, out of the two options, whether it's attempting to win back the American people, which is just like clearly not going to work, that leaves the other option, which is like mass censorship, jail time, all these horrific 1984 style things. People have long speculated, okay, are they willing to do that to the American public? And I think with the recent statements we're seeing, looking like they're not having a problem with that. So let's take a look at these clips and see what's all the fuss about. Now, our first clip comes from one Shabbos Kestenbaum. Oh, brother.
Bruh, Shabbos Kestenbaum? That name is crazy.
Shabbos Kestenbaum is a influencer, speaker. He's on...
Is he named after the Shabbat? Is that the idea?
PragerU. So, I mean, like, he's just Jewish.
How's your first name Shabbos? Where does that come from? Like, I'm just genuinely curious.
I don't know. That's kind of his bit, is he's just Jewish and then, like, waltzed his way into PragerU because it's owned by another Jew. I have an interesting history with Shabbos Kestenbaum because I've spoken to him before. He went out of his way to DM me, calling me, you know, every name under the sun, just throwing the book at me. This guy, the definition of just annoying, sniveling, entitled. You're being such an anti-Semite. You're being such an anti-Semite. I'm suing Harvard for anti-Semitism. By the way, that's his bit. He got big for suing Harvard for anti-Semitism because they were having protests. He's an immigrant. I think he comes from, like, does he come from Ukraine or something like that? He's just, I don't know. He's just the worst. And I think this clip proves why.
You will never be able to defeat racism because racism is a mentality and an ideology, right? You can't dictate your way out of how people think. What you can do is you can tell a bus driver in the 21st century that if you tell a black guy to go to the back of the bus, we will haul your ass to jail that night. Yet for whatever reason, when it comes to anti-Semitism, when someone commits an anti-Semitic act, we don't send them to jail. Instead, we get the ADL to say, let's bring them to a Holocaust museum, which A, gives them pretty bad ideas, and B, doesn't solve anything about the fundamental issue that they violated the law. So the way we solve anti-Semitism is pretty goddamn simple, and I'm really besides myself that we don't push for this with all the major Jewish organizations. When someone commits a crime, stop sending them on El Al flights. That will make them more anti-Semitic, I guarantee it. Send their ass to jail. It's not complicated. I don't care if people think that we have horns. I don't care if people think we control the banks. I don't care if people think that we run Hollywood. I don't have them think what they want. What I care is when they throw rocks through the synagogue. And the only response when people throw rocks through a synagogue is prosecuting them, which is why when Claudine Gay, the serial plagiarist at Harvard University, was discriminating against the civil rights of of Jewish students, we filed a lawsuit. We took the law into our hands. And I encourage any student, whether you are Jewish or Christian, anytime your civil rights are being violated, hold your universities accountable. For those of us who live in New York, anytime Mamdani violates the law or Students for Justice in Palestine
He's so the most angered and like bigoted of 1930s Germany propagandists could not come up with a more vile and horrific stereotype of these people than Shabbos Kestenbaum. I hate this guy. He's so annoying, dude. Every time he speaks, he exudes the paranoid discontent of the Jewish spirit. Just like the energy of his people. Just this paranoid, neurotic, just annoying, sniveling entitledness. But we're gonna use the lawsuits. We're gonna use the lawsuits, and we're gonna take you to jail. We're gonna take your ass to jail. On paper, this sounds okay, because yeah, we have the Civil Rights Act and whatever. Okay, I get it. Here's the problem. IHRA definition of anti-Semitism basically boils down to whatever these people don't like. If you're critical of the state of Israel, that is considered anti-Semitic. And so to publicly say, I take issue with what the state of Israel is doing, that is considered an anti-Semitic act. By his logic, under his rules, if let's say someone in an institution or a university, the government, whatever, were to say out loud, I do not like what the state of Israel is doing, he could say and have a realistic case to say that's an anti-Semitic act and that person should go to jail. And I said this before in a clip that was pretty popular. These people don't care about free speech. They never have and they never will. Free speech is a very uniquely us thing, okay? That's an us thing. They aren't us. Western society, European society, we value the idea of free expression. We've kind of, created these ideas. We've based them off of our grander history. And so we like the idea of free speech. They don't. Like, he talks about the law, the way in which people of this culture, especially these New York fucking, they don't look at the law as this great thing that we have that is founded upon these ideas of liberty. No, they see it as like a tool. They see our Constitution as an obstacle to get over. They see free speech as something to get over. If it were up to them, they would do away with...
I mean, yeah, that's very true. Like, you think about the media and all that. And I think one of the things that really, pilled me, I mentioned this before on stream, that just really broke my whole Blue Capsule foundation was the CV-19 and the lockdowns and the inability, I mean, like he's saying, this whole free speech thing was something to get around people's personal freedoms. It became something to get around. It was like, okay, how do we make sure people get the jabbed? How do we make sure people aren't, espousing alternative viewpoints on a certain virus, aren't espousing alternative viewpoints such as like a lab leak theory? Did the virus come from China? All those kinds of things that we later were proven to be correct. At the time were conspiracy. So that's the thing that just really messes with me, is he's totally right. Like they view free speech as something to like get around, the founding documents, the things that the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, George Washington, Ben Franklin, like all those kinds of people, like when they founded the United States of America, it was about, okay, here was the issues we have with our European society. We don't like the power the monarchy had, the oligarchs, whatever it may be. Here in the 13 colonies, we want freedom of speech. Here in the United States of America, we want freedom of speech. And they wrote that in the Constitution. But now, 300 plus years later, it's this whole thing that, in the corporatized world we live in now, almost not too different than cyberpunk. We have to get around that. And, not we, but like that's what the corporations think. That's what the, Care Bears, the Care Bear oligarchs think,
with free speech entirely, okay? They like free speech when it comes to them saying whatever they want. They hate free speech when we say whatever we want. And the thing about them and their spirit is that they don't mind hypocrisy. They don't mind being called a hypocrite. Look here, he said, I don't care what they think about us. Exactly. they don't care what we think of them. Like this civilizational concept of shame or of like public reputation, that's not a thing for them. Annoying, dude. Like that, you know, at least some of these people can be charming, okay? They can be funny. And it's like, all right, I still hate what you're saying, but at least like you can give me Larry David. You know what I mean? Like you can be funny. And it's like, all right, we can enjoy this. There's no redeeming qualities here. He's not even funny. His jokes are so easy and stupid and like, oh, well, if we put them on the Israeli airline, they'll become more anti-Semitic. What's the deal with airline food? Like, what the fuck, Shabbos? It's just like, it's disappointing. Like, what the fuck am I getting from this, dude? Like, anyways, let's take a look at our next clip. This next clip is absolutely blowing up literally the day I am filming this right now. I'm hopping on this very, very quickly. So, Jonathan Greenblatt. Jonathan Greenblatt is the current head of the ADL. For those who don't know, one, what the fuck are you doing here? Second, the ADL, Anti-Defamation League. Don't let the name fool you. The ADL just means the Jews Protecting Jews Legally League. Like that's what it's founded by Jews, it's run by Jews, it's a Jewish organization. And so the ADL has been around for ages. It had a very interesting origin story I would absolutely recommend looking into. But Jonathan Greenblatt, he's of this very liberal camp. He's of this very like modernist camp. He is wildly unpopular. And so he had this clip recently while giving a speech, and let's take a look and see why this individual might possibly be unpopular.
So number one, we measure and track. Number two, we monitor and disrupt. We have a whole apparatus. I have 40 analysts working full time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, monitoring extremists. We monitor them online, social media, messaging apps, video games, cryptocurrency, podcasts, short form video, Wikipedia, LLMs. We monitor these people and we share the intelligence with the FBI. You saw last month, you heard about the thing that happened at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. Our analysts.
Guys, think about this, like the stock market. One of the things that really terrifies me about the stock market right now is like what the stock market's saying. So, what are the companies that are doing well right now? Well, really the main story's been, you got companies like Palantir, Oracle, you know, going to all-time highs, right? And it's just like these companies, like, you know, also like a lot of military companies, stuff like that, right? So, them going up like all-time highs, it's almost like the stock market signaling a, like, oh, like your digital enslavement, basically. This is, you know, what to prepare for, or like this is what's going to succeed, or like this is the next step in the future, you know, this is the future to plan for, or, and I don't know, that's just wild to me, you know. Sam Hyde said this one time before, where it's like, you know, this whole AI tech thing, you know, the market and all that, it's like, it's this weird thing where like the market's like assuming this is what people want, even though it's not necessarily true. You know, the market, damn, I gotta hold on, but yeah, that but yeah, that's something I've been thinking about. But yeah,
investigated what happened. They said they were Koreatown for Palestine. We were able to ascertain they were from a group called the Turtle Island Liberation Front. Turtle Island is how like left-wing activists refer to the United States. They don't call it America, they call it Turtle Island. Like the Iranians call it the Zionist entity, right? They won't call it by its name. The Turtle Island Liberation Front, we gave them a whole dossier. What is Turtle Island Liberation Front? What are their ideas, their goals? Who are they? We identified the people who are in the synagogue. This was on Wednesday, December the 10th. On Monday, December the 15th, this is going to ring a bell. Kash Patel announced they cracked a terror ring where they arrested 4 people who were planning New Year's Eve bombings. Turtle Island Liberation Front.
Oh fuck, dude! Are they monitoring Are they monitoring the Vrillium Instagram? Somebody at the FBI watching my Instagram right now, folks. Let me say this clearly. I am not an extremist, okay? I am the shit poster on the internet. I have no violent intents. Love all people. I have no violent intents towards myself. I am perfectly stable and healthy. Please leave me alone, Mr. Jewish FBI guy. Please leave. Hey man, we're good over here, okay? We're good. We're good over here. Oh fuck, dude, like this is crazy. Don't get me wrong. Okay, is it like fucking hilarious that they nabbed the Turtle Island Liberation Front? Okay, yes, that's funny. Just because like I don't like leftists, obviously, and that's such a leftist ass name. So okay, I'll give them that. I don't
My
like that,
Cyberpunk
though.
just
I don't
crashed.
like that they
I
have
just saved it,
access
though.
to this shit. I don't like that they are in our fucking phones. They're in our screens. I don't like that this laptop right now is basically a rabbi sitting in my house. Hold on. I know, folks, I'm sorry, but I gotta do it to you. I want to take a quick second to thank today's sponsor, Underground Cannon. Now, folks, let's get back to the video. So that's our buddy Jonathan Greenblatt. That's the ADL. Okay, but the question stands, what are we doing? What are the Gentiles up to during this? What are the Christians up to during this? Well, from the same event as earlier, the Jerusalem Post conference, we have a nice quote from Robert Stearns, a Protestant pastor, minister, I don't know what the fuck they call themselves, father, daddy, I don't know. Apparently he's important enough that they have him speaking at the same stage as the wonderful Mr. Shabbos Kestenbaum, so he must be a pretty important guy in that sphere. So let's take a look at what he had to say.
2,000 years of history, of Christian history, have been horrible to the Jewish people. Unspeakable atrocities, unspeakable horrors have been committed against your family under the banner of...
I mean, I guess the thing to just always remember is, like, don't forget about, like, the persecution of Christians and all that too. You know, people are gonna espouse whatever, like, you know, victim narratives. That's the popular thing now, right? And that's what seems to be like the biggest political weapon in the current zeitgeist now. People, that's, you know, you think about who owns McGraw-Hill and all the textbooks that, you know, we had to buy textbooks from as elementary schoolers. Well, McGraw-Hill is owned by Ghislaine Maxwell's family. And you know, why is it that McGraw-Hill, you know, in the history books, it'll tell you about World War II, it'll tell you about Holocaust, but it won't tell you about things like, okay, what happened, you know, what was the communist uprising like, or what happened at Holodomor, you know, things like that. Like, it's just so interesting to me.
Of the cross and in the name of Jesus. And if I had 100 lifetimes, it would not be sufficient teshuvah. It would not be sufficient repentance for all that has happened over history.
Oh my
But I'm here
God.
tonight to say something to you. I'm here tonight to tell you that there is a new breed of Christian alive in the world today. There is a new breed of Christian that says, along with you, for Zion's sake, I will not be silent, and for Jerusalem's sake, I will not be still. For Christians, Jesus is our favorite Jew. For most Jews, he's the cousin that you don't talk about at Pesach, okay? But can I say to us this? In this moment, in this pivotal, urgent moment of history, we have an opportunity not to be divided, but to be unified. Why? Because everyone in this room, Christian and Jew, we are praying for the same thing. We are praying for the coming of Mashiach. May he come soon and quickly and in our day, so we can all sing Ani Manaim.
What the fuck? Dude, what the fuck do these people... What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? I'm sorry. What the fuck was that? What the fuck? What do these people believe? Imagine apologizing for your people's history, like just being that buck broken, and then being like, oh, you know the core belief of our religion. You know, one of the most important things that we believe about Jesus being the Messiah. Shabbat Shalom, brother. Throw that aside. L'chaim, right? If you could show Martin Luther this clip, how fast do you think he'd run to the Vatican to kiss the feet of the Pope? How fast do you think he'd run to the Vatican to give his whole life to the Catholic Church? Oh my God. And I feel partly responsible for this. I'm an Anglo, okay? We kind of took the fucking Reformation and ran with it. Oh my God, were we wrong? Wow. If this is the natural end result of the Reformation, holy shit, we were wrong. Wow. Folks, that is going to do it for us today. Thank you for...
Okay, what else we got in here? Yeah, I actually want to watch a lot of these videos. I think, yeah, towards the bottom, there's better stuff, newer stuff. I guess this is like the one in the title. So let's get through this one.
Lighting up the internet currently is a beef that nobody saw coming between Florida gubernatorial candidate James Fishback, who has been an internet storm on his own, and top OnlyFans creator Sophie Rain. And what are they fighting over? Well, James Fishback broke the news with Joel Webbin on his plans to implement a sin tax.
I want to break some news here with you, Joel. I hadn't planned to do this, but allow me to do it, which is that as Florida governor in year one, I will push for the first of its kind OnlyFans sin tax. If you are a so-called OnlyFans creator in Florida, you are going to pay 50% to the state on whatever you so-called earn via that online degeneracy platform. And that money will be used to fund our education system, will be used to fund the crisis pregnancy centers, will be used to fund the first of its kind mental health czar for men in particular, because men have been told for far too long that they are guilty of masculinity, that they are guilty of all of society's ills. And I'm not going to stand for that slanderous lie. What I'm going to do is I am going to end this lie that toxic masculinity is responsible for all the sins and ills of society. If you're an OnlyFans model and you reside in Florida, get ready to pay 50% of your income to the state. It is called a sin tax because it is a sin, number one. But the purpose of a sin tax in economics is to disincentivize and deter a behavior. And yes, as Florida governor, I don't want young women who could otherwise be mothers, raising families, rearing children. I don't want them to be selling their bodies to sick men online. And I don't want young, impressionable men who have strayed from Christ, who have strayed from our Lord and Savior, to be told and drawn into lust and have their entire brain rewired. We will raise hundreds of millions of dollars of income on the OnlyFans sin tax. And if we don't, Joel, if we don't raise that income, you know what it'll mean? It will mean something even greater has materialized for the young women and young men of our state, that the OnlyFans industry and its supporters, and you know who those supporters are, Joel, that its supporters will have been utterly robbed of their ability to rob us, not just of our hard-earned wages, but of our commitment to Christ.
This policy is mentioned by James Fish.
I mean, 50%, that's... What is capital gains tax short term and the highest tax bracket? Isn't it something like that? I think, I don't quite remember. Yeah, I know capital gains tax is, depends on your, how much money you have. Like if you don't have any earnings and you have like a long-term gain, I don't think it really gets taxed at all, but you have to hold the stuff for over a year.
Back is the closest thing to Christian.
But if you have a lot of stuff, I mean, they're taxing you a lot.
Nationalist rhetoric on the market today. And it's no surprise to me that he broke the news with Joel Webbin, who is also a Christian nationalist, whose recently established channel NXR Studios was launched with Nick Fuentes, another Christian nationalist. So where does Sophie Rain come in? Well, James Fishback took aim directly at her, quoting Colin Ruggs' clip of himself saying once again that he will not allow more women to fall into the trap that is digital prostitution. And Sophie finally responded, "Sounds like you subscribed and got buyer's remorse after dropping your annual salary on an OnlyFans girl. And for one, what a weak..."
Yeah, that was horrible.
response? And two, isn't this her agreeing with him that there's an unhealthy relationship between digital prostitutes and men? But at the very least, it's her clowning her own customer base. It's her trying to humiliate James Fishback for giving money to an OnlyFans girl, which is ironic, isn't it? But 3 hours later, we got a video response.
Never in my whole life did I think that I would wake up and see a Florida politician trying to...
Honestly, bro, I honestly don't want to hear this, bro. Like, what is she going to add of value to this video?
Because we all really know where our tax dollars go.
Well, the attempt for clout clearly worked by Fishback, and he's got her attention now. But she instantly reveals how retarded she is the moment she tries to entertain politics. She thinks James is doing this to raise funds.
I never usually get into politics, but there are...
One, to prevent other girls from being incentivized to wanting to do it themselves. And two, the girls who are on the margins of it being a profitable career, making it not that, so then they are also disincentivized from continuing said career. It's an attempt to get girls to stop whoring themselves out. So I don't really think she's getting the part that Christian nationalists don't like the prostitution. Clavs and I shared the same reaction, honestly.
My God, shut up. Why are you trying to get into politics? Like, shut the fuck up, you stupid. Like, you don't know anything.
Did I think that
You're a fucking hooker, essentially. You're an escort, you're a prostitute. Don't tell me about my tax dollars, bitch. Alright? Shut the fuck up.
Pay your taxes or quit being a hooker, the Wang Half replied. Now at this point, James Fishback has the attention of the pop culture crowd and the Gooners, so he went on TMZ to further break down his syntax.
Well, Harvey, it's really simple. I don't want young girls, young women in Florida who are smart and capable to be told that they have to do this for a living. They can be nurses, doctors, veterinarians, bus drivers. They can even be, dare I say, stay-at-home moms. The Christian and American thing for us to do for these young women is to not allow them to be exploited and abused by that disgraceful platform known as OnlyFans. And I'm running for Florida governor to protect our young women. And the right way to do that is to create a tax that is so high that it is a deterrent and an active disincentive that is going to stop the use of this platform so young women can go back to living their lives. I meet young women all across the state every single day. And one thing they talk about is the way they've been objectified and commodified. And look, I'm not going to single out women. Men are to blame for this as well. And so if I'm governor of Florida, if I'm elected on August 18th, 2026, as the Republican candidate to succeed Ron DeSantis, we're passing a 50% tax on all OnlyFans income. And guess what? For Sophie Rain, who is a proud resident of Florida, that means she's going to have to pay $42 million, Charles, to the state of Florida, which I'm going to use for two purposes. We're going to increase public school teacher pay, and we're going to improve school lunches, something that Michelle Obama promised and never got around to.
And TMZ was, of course, oppositional, with at one point one of the hosts
Yeah, I mean, the guy on the left there, he's the physiognomy, but he's Care Bear.
arguing in favor of OnlyFans because it helps stay-at-home moms, to which James Fishback calls cap.
They can make enough money to live comfortably and be around their children all the time.
Harvey, I'm going to call...
I mean, that makes their lives of their children significantly worse. You think about the... just having to grow up with that. You know, if you have anyone that's like easy hazing material on that kid, you know, if their sister's involved in that industry, if their mom's involved in that industry.
Cap on that, because stay-at-home moms have existed for the entirety of our nation's history, and they were doing sourdough starters and churning butter and raising their children and rearing their children without needing to sell their bodies online to sick men around the world.
Well, there was no...
Now, Sophie Rain may respond further, but it's probably not going to be intelligent nor worth listening to in the first place.
It never was.
The other two elements I would explore here are, first, this is in effect the most Christian nationalist policy that has been proposed for at least the last few years, and is reflective, in my opinion, of the continually growing right wing. The only issue is the second element, which is that most people have a bitter taste in their mouth from the last guy who pretended to be one of us. And for a lot of people, their cadence and ethos is too similar to ignore. However, with this and a lot of his other rhetoric, it appears he is winning over people, and especially the Groypers. And to that effect, Nick Fuentes himself had this to say about Fishback when he was asked by a super chatter a couple nights ago.
The Groyper sent $25. Love the show and I love the message of taking your own side with America first. Been an avid viewer since October. Should have been sooner. Any thoughts on Fishback and Tucker interview, or are you still gathering intel before commenting?
You know, I really like what I've seen from Fishback. I I have to say, I'm a bit conflicted still for a few reasons. I don't want to hurt him. That's kind of my first thing, is I don't want to speak out of turn and hurt a politician by association if they're an ally. And the other thing is I didn't vet him myself. But you know what? He seems really...
I'm going to put my headphones in, guys. I think the audio will be a little better that way. I'm done gaming for now, so we can do that. See you.
Smart. I was really impressed with him on Tucker. Very impressed. And I hadn't, I've seen some stuff from him, but his social media is very impressive. His TikTok, his Instagram, I see him everywhere. Very well spoken, very sharp. Funny too. He said Byron Donalds wants to turn Florida into a Section 8 ghetto. That's hilarious, actually. The way I love how matter-of-factly Byron Donalds wants to turn Florida into Section 8 ghetto. It's so good. So you know what? I'm pretty impressed with him. I like him. I think. But
Slick on top right. Dashboard
went
live.
Out, but I think he's very impressive.
We'll have to go listen to the dashboard.
Ralph sent $25.
Regardless of how you may feel, to me, even if Fishback does turn out to be another Vivek, he's still taking the torch from Vivek, and he's pushing the rhetoric closer to where we have been for years, which is a good thing. And as long as it permeates and his candidacy can be somewhat of a success, even if he doesn't win the election but pulls in numbers, it will incur a positive reaction and an effect across the nation, because future candidates will now have the belief that they can run on similar platforms or even further right-wing ones and have success in their areas. And another one to pay attention to in that same element is Casey Putsch, who is going against Vivek Ramaswamy, or the previously mentioned conman. Both of these elections will be canaries in the coal mine for how far has the pendulum swung towards the right. We will start to get a trial run to see how far America First actually will go. So I would have to imagine that Sophie Rain will come out with some further responses. I would have to imagine that she's going to also rope in other content creators similar to her. And
I mean, the thing about Sophie Rain is like, she's young and she just has like certain like high estrogen like signaling things that are like very attractive to like guys today. So like the whole like I guess like the voluptuousness and having like being a white girl and you have like an ass and stuff like that, you can like kind of like market that stuff like even higher today. Whereas in the past that was almost viewed as like unattractive. Like you wouldn't be a model if you had that kind of body type.
I imagine we probably will see some kind of feminine reaction. I've already seen some levels of it in terms of people getting mad that the government will be profiting off of prostitution, and it seems no matter which way you want to get pressure to win, nobody's happy. So we'll see how this plays out, but for now, I am rooting for James Fishback, and I hope he does wonders for the state of Florida. And I'll also be looking forward to Casey, and hopefully we get some W's here in Ohio as well. But that is...
Alright, let's see what whole bad dashboard light got going on right now. And silence. Yeah, I was listening to him live with Thomas and Western, and that was really interesting. I haven't finished it yet, though. It was a 7-hour stream. I was only like halfway through it. So I plan on finishing that sometime soon. Has he said anything? No, he's not talking right now, I don't think. I guess I want to listen to the Goldberg videos real quick. I'll get those going. This is the one I really wanted to listen to, was the George Floyd one. Like, this one sounds interesting, but I don't know. I feel like I already, like, it's... If I had to guess, like, my honest opinion of why male camaraderie has died is it's because the world's gotten so cutthroat. And especially, like, it's gotten cutthroat for, like, mating and stuff like that, too. And, but also, like, guys have been told, like, you know, other guys are evil and stuff like that. And be ashamed of who you are, blah, blah, blah. And then the onlineification of everything. Everything's gone online too. So it's not like guys, hang out shoulder to shoulder in person anymore. And there's scientific research and studies on that where, like, specifically, like, when you hang out, like, shoulder to shoulder, like, that sounds, I don't know, it sounds like gay or whatever, but, like, it does something to, like, the male brain of, like, it helps you form friendships because, back in the Stone Age times and stuff, guys were more or less like groups of military men, that was like an infantry group, or that was like a group of early Neolithic warriors, whatever it may be, right? Whatever kind of like military at the time, it was just like groups of men. And so it's kind of like in our brain to like guys form friendships with each other in the sense of like they kind of have to for the sake of the community or forming some kind of like greater force.
Welcome back.
I gotta really use the restroom, guys. I really gotta use the restroom. So I'm gonna go do that really quick. I do apologize, and then we'll start this video. Alrighty.
Here at Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about the incident in Minneapolis. As many of you know, there was a tendency to use kosher framing. So, was it justified? And even from that standpoint, absolutely. But if you stop there with illegal mumbo jumbo, you might evade a very crucial implication. That is, does this occurrence lead to the long-term betterment of American society? And the answer is yes.
Let me see something. I like, why can't I change the...
Welcome back here at Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about the incident in Minneapolis. As many of you know, there's a tendency to... You have this woman, yes, times a million. But to grasp that, you need to understand there's a lot more going on than simply politics. You have this woman, and someone can interject if information is not on fore. But she had 2 kids with a prior husband and did not have primary custody. Unless she voluntarily gave it up, which why would you reproduce and then say, I don't want to be around my kids most of the time? That means substance abuse issues, criminality, some kind of reason the courts decided she is not fit to have access on a consistent basis. Then she has another child with this man who's apparently deceased, and she's sending him to some experimental lefty liberal academy.
Think about that for a second, guys. You have the double X chromosome. You are the, sex favored by the courts, especially in family courts, and you still don't have custody. How much of a person with some kind of problem do you have to be in that situation?
Knows if he was on the pathway to being pruned out. That's up for debate. And she's married to this feral lesbian bull dyke who is on camera admitting what they were there for. Much like the brother-in-law said, she was not a bystander. She had very specific intent of being in that area. But let's say she was a bystander. Does that change the calculus? No. Now, before we get into that whole consideration, I wanted to highlight some responses because they were telling. To begin, you had some lefty liberals providing bad faith takes where they go, oh, you say you're pro-white people, but you shot a white woman. And anyone whose conception of race is limited to skin color is an imbecile who should be deprived of rights, because there's far more going on. There's a lot of conservative Christians, mind you, who parrot this nonsense, and even if you provide them with actual data, they'll just say, oh, that's Nazi stuff, I don't care, because this is ultimately a expression of narcissism. Whether it's the religion of woke progressivism, or it is most of Christianity, most of these religions, it's about what the person wants to feel, it's not about the mainline implications for the world in which they live. You also notice quite a few Euros weighing in. One thing I picked up whenever you interact with especially a Western European online, there's no vision. There's no inspiration to what they're saying. it'll effectively boil down to, when in Europe, the state covers healthcare. The Greenlanders shouldn't leave because they lose their healthcare. So, welfare. You strip out the welfare model, which, by the way, is falling apart, bursting at the seams. What are you left with? Snorting croissants and chomping down coffee, which is not originally from Europe anyway? Western Europeans are mentally, spiritually, physically, morally slaves, and they should be treated as such. We need to use them for public works projects. Maybe we can bring some over to Greenland to develop the colony. But the idea that these people, who are overgrown children, should be listened to on any question is laughable. Okay, so Pedro Gonzalez has become a soy jack. I guess it was over the DeSantis collapse. But more specifically, Dan Bilzerian. I don't believe the ICE agent's life was in danger. I think he went into the interaction angry. I don't care if she was a blue-haired liberal. This isn't about right and left. It's about government tyranny and overreach. I don't trust the government.
I mean, you know, BP 101, Dark Capsule 101, don't put yourself in dangerous situations. Honestly, especially as a male, you're viewed as more disposable, and I think that's part of the reason why the story blew up is, you know, this is a cream cheese woman with, you know, same Bobby Floyd, you know, rainbow community kind of affinities. And we know with the Dark Capsule 101 that we don't have those same kind of like societal affinities working in our favor. No DEI working in our favor per se, all that. And just keep yourself healthy. Don't put yourself in bad or dangerous situations. I know even the you guys think about, like, even if you are a person like me, you don't have any kind of major road incidents in your whole driving career. You know, I've been driving since I was 17, so over 10 years now. And I still had my insurance double or triple in the last 3 to 5 years. And you think about how many more illegals are on the roads now, how many more road incidents are happening now, how much more dangerous in general the roads are now. You know, it's like BP 101, you know, it's getting dangerous out there. It's getting deadly out there. Just try to keep yourself safe as much as you can, because it's becoming a more and more hostile world. So just avoid those situations. The side I want to, you know, and I think this is what Dan is getting at with this tweet, but something I do also want to voice is that, like, the police shouldn't really be, you know, pew-pewing people, unless it's like a last resort. But also, like, yeah, you shouldn't be like even remotely threatening an officer or anything like that. Even like, just because of that's Dark Capsule 101, like, you know, that's an easy way to end up in, you know, suicide or self-offing by cop, I think is what they call it. Boo abide, if you guys know what that is. But yeah.
You are hearing this signaling of police state surveillance from a man who builds his entire brand off of being in front of the camera nonstop. The king of Instagram, surrounded by these sharmutas, who he probably doesn't vet properly, just looks, oh, you're attractive, could be a spy of a certain country he hates. And you want to try to go to bat for, oh, we have to be concerned about our civil liberties. These are not serious characters, and they need to be dismissed just offhand. Another one, Ryan Dawson, oh, they're not really after illegals, they're using illegals as an excuse to create a police state aimed at you. Just keep in mind that this guy is a massive Putin shill. In his mind, Putin is basically the Messiah, and he's complaining about a police state in the US. I don't know if it's a variety of being a doomer, but when they always go back to more freedoms.
Wait, who is Ryan Dawson? That sounds so familiar. Was this like a Smosh era YouTuber? Was he on YouTube during the era of Smosh, or am I thinking of someone else?
And they don't understand the struggle that we're involved in, as though embracing libertarianism actually matters. What did that do? What was the consequence of all this push? Well, you have just basically enticed them to go further. What is the last serious victory of libertarians outside of maybe economic regulations? Another variety can be summed up with characters such as Daryl Cooper, Martyr Maid, who I guess was a World War II revisionist, but now he's saying he was on the side of the woman in this interaction, which I think is kind of hilarious. Whether he specifically or others were doing the Weimar problems require Weimar solutions bit for years, and then all of a sudden it's, oh, I can't support that. Folks, you don't have a choice. This whole, I'm a pretty conservative guy, pro-2A, and back the blue, but I don't know if I can get behind this. It's a little bit extreme. You're not going to survive. That's how charitable I can be. We are not living in the 90s where you have a spirited discussion about the merits of Bob Dole's tax plan versus Billy Boy Clinton's government regulations. We have not had a decisive presidential election since 1984. The country has been polarized. It's only getting worse with technology. And you think you're going to be able to negotiate with folks who will tune out your kid absent your consent, force you to take a formula which you don't know what's in it, on threat of losing access to your family or a way to make a living. They will walk into a school and massacre children because of some warped gender ideology. They'll flood your country with foreigners, put those foreigners in positions of power to judge you while they're stealing public money. And what are you going to do? Oh, I've come for formal parley? I don't know if it's right-wingers who are so completely delusional that they think you can pull off a revolution from above in a totally sanitized fashion, just good vibes and sharing memes. Or alternatively, they're feigning ignorance due to the nature of the liability republic, the cover-your-ass society. It's like the folks we can bring up with the Jeffrey pill who, oh yeah, this Indian guy is going to totally expose the deep state and prosecute the PDF files. Are you a moron? So you're sitting here expecting you're going to go up to these leftists and say, hey guys, I'm just a libertarian.
I'm a classical liberal if it's not too much trouble.
I'm a moderate constitutional conservative. Blam, blam, blam. That's the answer. There is none of this, well, I didn't know it was going to go this far. I'm a Christian, brotherly love. This type of behavior, if you fall in that category, where you think it's all just a big club, oh yeah, please, get a visa in another country ASAP. Because you're not going to do very well in what's coming down the road. If you wanted to, you should have voted for John Kasich. Hugs and donuts. Howard Schultz, coffee. But people are not interested in that. And so we've opened this set of gates, come what may. The type, well, we can just all get along now. It's not going to work. You think the zeitgeist is flowing this way or Democrats are going to come back and control. You don't want to prevent that. My friends, get ready because it isn't going the way that your little fantasy works where, oh, I was just a fellow traveler. Oh, they'll accept me. Not to mention that these normies, what they'll do is say, hey, I know where this person lives. I know the bad opinions they had. Guaranteed. Get out of the country if you can't take the heat, is my advice. Okay, I realize that was a tad long-winded, but now we can revisit the pertinent matter. And that relates to women never facing any consequences. So white females for a long time have been picking up on the behavior of Keisha and Pookie in relation to law enforcement. Make a big scene, world star, hope you get manhandled and file a discrimination lawsuit. Or tell off the guard, make fun of, you probably have small balls, you don't have a wee-wee, this kind of thing. There was even some soy jack following an ICE agent.
Yeah, this tweet's really important. What's unfolding in Minnesota is a psychosexual drama where bored moms are begging big, strong men to throw them around. They're just I hate. I just, because I'm chronically online, I guess. I just know too much about what's happening now. So basically, there's this thing called roleplay.ai, and on roleplay.ai, you know, amongst other things, like you got your 12-foot minotaurs and, you know, what other monster corn you got. One of the top trending subjects on there on roleplay.ai, I think it's top 3 or top 5 on the website, is ICE agent. Man, you can't make this shit up, man.
And so, oh, you're short. Like, these folks, as much as they claim tolerance and acceptance of everyone, they go back to what is ostensibly mocking you for your genetics. But remember, the inkwells are evil, the black pill's toxic. It is quite interesting. But yes, these white females, really women in general, know they will never be properly held accountable for whatever they do. They can commit crimes, they're not sentenced at the same level of men, they can touch their students, and it's very rare.
I remember we had a university course and they briefly talked about this, and you know, I was talking about how I held my tongue through a lot of stuff, you know, that they taught me at university, especially towards the end when I got pilled. One thing they said about why women get in trouble, I guess, with the law less is that it was like, oh, but women have like less risk threshold or like less risk impulsiveness, and that's kind of true, but it's like, you know, for the same crime they get prosecuted less. You know, it's that for the same crime constraint that we really wanted to focus on. So I don't remember the exact context of the university lecture I was in at the time, but I remember their argument was something about, it's just like, oh, women just do good more, or women, you know, something like that.
They're going to have the hammer drop on them. You see how quickly men rush to their defense in comment sections? We have had cases where they've flat out murdered a boyfriend and gotten off with a slap on the wrist or on the ass because, oh, she's got so many great plans, she's going to be a doctor. I mean, I've brought up before, the cop in Texas, she walks into the wrong apartment and blasts the dude, got a substantially lesser sentence than Derek Chauvin, who had far more plausible deniability when you really break it down. They can cheat on their husband, and even if he divorces them, there's a high
One of the scariest moments in my life, I was in this kind of like shanty motel. It wasn't like, it was just kind of, I don't, not shanty, like what am I trying to say? It was like this like it was like a RV park with like they had some like motel buildings, and this is in the New Orleans area. And I was staying in this one place, and I guess I had went to the wrong building, and I scanned my card in. Now it's one of those like door hotel things where it's like, you know, you pop your card in, you pop it out, it does the green light, and then you go in. And if it's not your room, it's, you know, it's going to give you the red light, right? I don't know why, but I guess the card glitched or something. But like in a room that totally was not mine, the card went green. I go in there, and there's this dude like in the bed, and I tweak out for a second, and then he wakes up, and then I'm like, oh, like I realized what was going on. And then, but the dude started charging me. He goes, like he like wakes up, like, and then he just goes into like but he like, I could tell he was like getting out of bed and like getting ready to like move towards me quickly. And so I just go, I'm so sorry. And then I close the door and I book up out the hall. Like I'm out of there. Like that dude, you know, I never saw that dude again, but just that was really scary. And I think, you know, I got out of there, you know, the next day. I didn't hang around there, obviously. That I just felt so weird, but I told no one about that. Like I was just like, bro, like. But yeah, in general, you know, BP 101, all that stuff. Those temporary residences and stuff. Like if you can get like a proper hotel that's, you know, from maybe like a reputable chain, like a Hilton or something, and it's over $100 a night, just take the over $100 a night bill, bro. And yeah, like. BP 101, you know, stay out of those like low income temporary bad housing situations, I guess. I don't know. Well, yeah, genuinely one of the scariest like moments of my life, for real.
High probability they're walking away with money. Then some other dude will be sent.
And he was a big guy too, big ass Hispanic dude.
Will welcome
like
them into the fold, and they can become a trad wife. So there is no moment where it is, hey, you have to face up to what you've done. Except, and we brought that up in the case of the husband trump card segment, where they pick the wrong man, and he goes, okay, I'm not letting you leave. I'm not going to permit you to go and talk smack about me to your girl Chad or the next dude that you're doing pillow talk with. So it's a grim conclusion. I noted in response to a Hammerhand post that Hollywood...
Wait, I kind of missed that last bit. I'm sorry, guys. I gotta go back a little bit.
In the case of the husband trump card segment, where they pick the wrong man, and he goes, okay, I'm not letting you leave. I'm not going to permit you to go and talk smack about me to your girl Chad or the next dude that you're doing pillow talk with. So it's a grim conclusion. I noted in response to a Hammerhand post that Hollywood gasses up these chicks, makes them think they can take down a dude who's twice their size. They'll be the superhero of TikTok. And just, yeah, you know, girl power. Well, what happened here, she thinks she's going to cause this agent to back off. Or, by the way, if she had run him over, the leftists would be celebrating just killed a Nazi. This dude was previously injured in a similar event, and I'm not going to be a statistic. And so instead of just folding, instead of getting her way, the outcome was a 9mm bullet.
And that's something to focus on, is like BP 101, Dark Capsule 101, you know, your personal safety and well-being comes first. Is because it's getting so hostile, you know, as the Jonker said, it's getting stranger out there. You don't know what these other motherfuckers are going through. You don't want to piss people off right now. You just don't want to do it. You know, you don't know if people are carrying guns. You don't know if they have weapons on them. You don't know what they're willing to turn into a weapon, you know.
So she found out maybe a little bit too late, but there is a consequence. You have to realize why so many of these men are outraged, because there are some inkwells who can speak in a genuine fashion about women. There's others that are just weasels. There's some men who do very well with females who are also tell you God's honest truth, but the bulk of the population...
The dog will say hi. No? Say hi, dog. Can you speak? Speak. 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 No, you don't want to talk right now. Okay. Some sniffs into the mic. That's all we're gonna get. Sorry about that.
In any country, not just Western ones, they spend their life with an ear to the ground of how is a woman going to react to my thoughts, my opinions, my lifestyle, my career. And as such, they're never being straightforward. You've got the progressive males, you've got the soy jacks, you've got the wife guys and the aspiring wife guys. Look at this here. Separate question, but the rice cell goes, I hope my wife murders me in cold blood if I ever say stuff like this. No jury would convict her. Now, he would claim it's a joke, but this is how their mind works. The woman is beyond reproach. If I do anything that ruffles her feathers, I deserve the maximum punishment. No matter how a female behaves, what will they do? And what was the immediate reaction to this incident? Leftists were going, she was terrified. Oh yeah, so she's a co-equal, she's got emotional intelligence, she's very perceptive, but whenever they commit a very blatant error, you turn them into a child and they didn't have any agency and control. That's what we're dealing with. The irony is, if you want to save the lives of... That's what we're dealing with. The irony is, if you want to save the lives of characters such as this creature in Minneapolis in future, there need to be more harsh and immediate penalties for bad behavior. You go to a country like El Salvador, people are polite, friendly, and helpful, well-behaved. Why? Because they know the government doesn't mess around. In the US, you can have 60, 70 priors, and you'll be let out to do whatever. There was a case on that Snap show from early 2000s, so this Keisha, she knifed to death an older white dude she was married to, and claimed it was...
Yeah. And that's like something I'm really worried about, is like the example he just gave is like, you know, a pointy object or something like that, or... And I think that's something I'm worried about too, is like elder violence in particular might go up. Just people poor, desperate, and then they look at like the elderly as like an easy lick or something. You know, they know that they have money. They're like one of the only people in the society still that have like money. So
Defense Against Great, which, you know how that works. And she is on the lam, she gets locked up. Then there's a clerical error while she's waiting to be charged. She gets out, decides to crash with this younger brother, and when he's asleep, she shoots him in the head. And because, more than likely, they didn't see her as a significant threat. So when America starts going, it doesn't matter how, oh, you're just a woman. You're going to act out. You're going to put yourself, put your children in a dangerous situation. There's going to be swift and harsh consequences. That's when they will start changing their ways, or at least some of them. But until we have this approach where, yes, they are co-equals, but whenever they do something reckless, stupid, threatening, oh, you can't be mean to them, she's just a girl. So many of the issues we face to this day, they go back to that point. So like I said, harsher penalties across the board, because there's plenty of men who do this, but generally speaking, men are more likely to face consequences. That's the only way we get to better. And you can take out your politics, take out your morality, but you cannot avoid seeing this if you have a halfway honest mind.
Yeah, I mean, shoot. One thing I do want to point out is like this whole competence thing, of like, I know we live under clown world and all that, but if you are truly hired and you excel at your job and all that, and you aren't one of these like protected groups or whatever, it's almost like it gives you like a subtle background buff in a way where people know you're like the legit product. You know, they know you're not like a DEI hire, all that kind of stuff. So even though all that stuff he said is true about, there's this huge accountability gap between men and women. I mean, it's massive. Just know that, like, as a man, there's some kind of dignity there. Like, I'm kind of coping, I get that. But there is some kind of dignity there. And people will kind of like, there is like, if you are truly the real product, the real, you know, capable man as advertised, like you get a little extra buff because of that. So this Canada video looks really interesting. 4 minutes, maybe we end on that one. I can stay for like a 4-minute boy. I was thinking about making a Discord so I could get you guys to send in clips I could react to, or send in videos so I could build a bigger catalog to pick from. If anyone has any interest in that, let me know.
Why does Canada seem to be slowly dismantling itself as a country? And I'm not talking about some sort of big civil war or American tanks rolling across the border. No, Canada seems to be dismantling itself from within. What started out as an act of virtue signaling has spiraled into a constitutional crisis over who owns the country itself. You see, for years, Canadians were engaged in something that could only really be described as a progressive fashion statement. Land acknowledgements before hockey games, renaming a few streets, and changing plaques were happening all over the country. Take Trutch Street in Vancouver. Originally named after a lieutenant governor of British Columbia, the city renamed it in June 2025 to this, a traditional indigenous word almost no one can even type, let alone pronounce. And almost overnight, residents discovered their banks, insurance, and government forms literally couldn't process the new name. Mortgages, business payments, and even mail deliveries all started to go haywire because some back-end system couldn't handle the bizarre string of letters and symbols. Now, this sounds like just a massive inconvenience, and for the residents of what used to be known as Trutch Street, it certainly was. But bit by bit, these small acts of progressive virtue signaling have grown into massive court rulings that are threatening to dismantle the...
Do you guys remember when there was all these sports teams, I think particularly the NFL team, like the Redskins, they changed their logos and they're like, oh, we are now the Washington Commanders or something like that. And then there was like this whole organization of all these different tribes and stuff, and they had all these spokespeople from these Native American tribes came forward, and they were like, oh, we feel really disrespected by you guys changing your names, because we really viewed those guys as warriors, and we really viewed that as like a sign of respect and a veneration of our culture when you kind of almost like immortalized us under these like sports team names, and like it was just wild, the dichotomy there.
Entire country. You think I'm exaggerating? Take a look at this. In August 2025, a judge ruled that a large chunk of Lulu Island in the Vancouver suburb of Richmond is not actually owned by the Crown or the city, or even the hundreds of actual residents who live there. Instead,
this cracks me up. Let me guess. They like snap their fingers and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, this land is owned by these people now, which is like crazy. That like that's what literally I've heard Canada is doing to some degree, is they're literally saying like, hey, you know, get ready to like lose your property, teehee. Like what? Like that's wild to me. That I mean, the US is like basically the capital of capitalism, so hopefully that shit never happens here, man. But yeah, Canada, as he was saying beginning of the video, and this guy, by the way, I think he's a US senator or something. He's like a US senator with like a YouTube channel, or I think he's a representative, not a senator. A senator holds more clout than a rep, I think. So he's like a state rep, a little bit less clout than a state senator, I think. But yeah, I mean, he's in the government. He goes to D.C. He does all that stuff, and he has a YouTube channel, Nick Freitas. But this is his like second channel, the Y Minutes.
Court ruling declared that the land was owned by the Cowichan Indigenous tribe. Immediately after the court ruling, property titles issued by the Canadian government were declared defective and invalid. Banks froze, real estate buyers vanished, and a $100 million local construction project lost financing because nobody knew who really owned the dirt it was going to be built on. Now that sounds pretty bad, but unfortunately, once you accept that kind of court ruling in one place, you accept it in pretty much everywhere else. That's why two other tribes are now asserting overlapping claims over the same land in Richmond, arguing that it lies within their territory. And this isn't limited to just one city in British Columbia either. The Six Nations are pushing claims over huge swaths of southern Ontario. One Indigenous land claim in New Brunswick now stretches across roughly half the province's landmass. Meanwhile, the financial obligations tied to all this are spiraling out of control. A decade ago, Indigenous-related spending was a large portion of the country's budget. But now, between massive settlement funds, legal costs, and newly created financial obligations, Ottawa is on track to make reparations one of its top budget lines. To put it another way, Canada is now spending more on Indigenous issues than on its healthcare system or on interest on the national.
Do you guys know how much $63 billion is? I think the Wendy's company right now is valued on the stock market at $3 billion. That's like, you think about all the Wendy's franchises in the world. I think they have like 3,000 plus restaurants. That's a $3 billion company. And according to this chart, Canada is spending $63 billion annually as an annualized budget on Indigenous spending and reparations. Man, I don't even know. I'm like, I can't even wrap my head around this. The only cope I have is I do not live there. That is the only, and that is like such a half-assed cope because what happens there will affect me here. That, if you guys, you know, that is how borders work. That is how influence works. That is how culture works. If that is your bordering neighbor, it will have influence.
Debt. And only a small fraction of this spending actually reaches Canada's First Nations. Much of it gets...
And I'm not saying, like, it's nothing against, obviously, like, Indigenous people, but it's that's just clown world spending. It's not logical brain. It's not an essential widget of society. And there's so much like taboo about like if certain other groups of people can advocate for their interests, other, you know, majority groups even should be able to advocate for their interests. And who's to say like who's allowed to play what kind of game, you know, especially if we're trying to like usher in this new post 1960s civil rights era under the tenets of Dr. Martin Luther King, who was about like being equal under the eyes of God, amongst any other things. You know, not to say like he was like, you know, a paragon or nothing. I know MLK Day is coming up, and he had a lot of like flaws. I know he was lustful and stuff like that. So, yeah, man, like it's so hypocritical. And it's literally, there's something about like cream cheese people and they have a certain, like they're wired in a way with some kind of like civic sense or moral sense or something like that that's been absolutely hijacked by media and just this whole new clown world initiative of we have to spend money on this or that and wokeness and all that. And now it materialized here, $63 billion annualized spending on Indigenous spending and reparations.
On its healthcare system or on interest on the national debt. And only a small fraction of this spending...
And I guess this is Canadian dollars, so it looks worse than it is. So, yeah, that's another good point. My math about the Wendy's stuff was wrong. This is Canadian dollars, so I'd have to readjust it. But I think it's like $1 US is like 1.4 Canadian dollars or something like that. It's not too, you know, it still is almost like a 1-to-1. It's just, yeah, the US is a little stronger per dollar than per dollar in Canada.
Or on interest on the national debt. And only a small fraction of this spending actually reaches Canada's First Nations. Much of it gets absorbed by lawyers, consultants, and government bureaucracies whose continued existence depends on perpetuating this crisis. Now, to anybody that can do basic math, this is completely unsustainable. No country can spend years insisting that its own founding is illegitimate, its institutions are oppressive, and its territorial sovereignty is morally invalid, and then
I've been getting more and more interested in like Spangler and the whole like self-deletion of a nation theories and stuff like that. And one of the things I really like about Spangler is he has that whole theory about like the religious awakening, and it's not like the religious awakening at the death of civilization. It's not like it's not same with the it's not filled with the same virility as the religious awakening, you know, at the kind of like come up of the civilization. There's a different vibe in the air, and I almost feel like that's the vibe we're feeling now. Is it's a spiritual awakening out of a sense of you know, we're looking over the cliff or something like that.
expect everyone to keep funding the system and obeying its rules. If the government has no moral right to exist, why should anyone pay taxes or respect its laws? And if every public event opens up by declaring that the land is stolen, how long before someone takes that literally? Ultimately, the quiet disaster that's building in Canada is one of its own making. For decades now, there has been a slow unraveling. What started off as a progressive moral narrative has spiraled into a legal precedent that threatens to break up and bankrupt the country. And the tragedy in all of this is that it's entirely self-inflicted. No one is forcing Canada to erase itself from the map or spend billions apologizing for its own existence. But until Canadians realize that they are trapped in a moral prison of their own making, things are only going to get much worse.
Here we go.
Oh shoot, what is this? Oh, yeah, Pearl's been posting. Pearl. I almost want to watch this one, but I want to call a stream and take a break, and I do want to watch this though. I guess we can watch this. Does she have a better video to watch, or is this a good one? I only have time for maybe one more video. I don't know. If anything, I'm not saying that this is a good channel to follow, but I'm interested in content like this sometimes because I think, like, you know, she has a huge reach, 2 mil. She was like one of the first chameleons to do the whole female in the Crimson Capsule space. Kind of had like a first mover advantage, and then also kind of had the whole, you know, DEI hire advantage. She even self admits that. I guess she debated Anna Kasparian recently, and so I guess watching that would be kind of interesting, but I was wondering if she had any like better clips recently. I kind of want to see this. Literally incapable of saving money. I mean, that dude is kind of true. I would say I kind of have the same issue. My spending habits are really bad, but when I'm making money, I'm good about like investing it and stuff. And even now I'm like, I still play the stock markets and stuff, and stuff like that. And I will say when the markets do well, they do well, but especially, you know, when you're on like the winning sectors, like, you know, but I feel like maybe we should watch that one. I kind of want to watch just spend their money on dumb shit. Like,
let's go shopping with my boyfriend's credit card. He's giving me a $500 shopping spree. Let's go shopping.
My wife, she's kind of gotten out of control with her spending. She got a credit card this year, and she maxed it out at $6,000.
What she buy?
She has. I mean, I go home every day, and I look around, and I don't see anything besides clothes. I guess. I mean, maybe clothes.
Okay, I have a haul, and this is.
Dang, that's crazy. Yeah, that's wild. I don't know. I don't understand this because me personally, like, even if like my parents pay for something, I feel very bad about it. Like, I feel like it's coming out of my own in a way. So it's like that shamelessness of like, oh, I'm just going to go shamelessly spend this resource, even if it's not particularly mine or coming out of my dime. And don't get me wrong, if it was something like the company is paying for you to do something, like this is company money, I'm spending every bit of that. But that's very different than like, oh, Broomstick, your company is going to pay for you to do this, versus, hey, Broomstick, your very own like parents are paying for you to do this, or something like that. Or like Broomstick, your partner is paying for you to do this, or your wife, your husband, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever.
From the last 2 days, and Loki did a little bit of damage. So let's see what I got.
Hey guys,
The whole oh, I did damage. Like that shit's so stupid.
Another feminist needs a study from a far left-leaning university to tell her that water is wet, sky is blue, and a little while
Jump
ago I
ahead.
tried everybody's money. Now, let's start with individual spending. According to BCG, the Boston Consulting Group, U.S. women control approximately 85% of consumer spending across the board. The entire private sector, despite being only 47% of the workforce and 50% of the total population. Let that sink in for a second. It's a result
Wait,
of
what was
7%.
that? 85% of consumer spending, 47% of the workforce, 50% of population. Wow.
Of the workforce and 50% of the total population. Let that sink in for a second. It's a result of women not only controlling men's purse strings in relationships, but also women being more careless and wasteful with their own private spending. One of the most common and ridiculous counter arguments these feminists use to avoid the utter shame of such an imbalance is to say that most of the 85% of spending is somehow
I
selfish.
think there was a Freudian test. She was going to say the feminists want a shit test. She had to correct her words there.
Such an imbalance is to say that most of the 85% of spending is somehow selfless. For instance, most of those purchases are for the entire family, like grocery shopping, as if it were somehow a virtuous sacrifice and a major burden on women to prevent their own kids from starving to death. Also, note that 85% figure includes tens of millions of women who are single, childless, or no longer have dependent children living in the house. Bottom line, we're not just talking about women who are selflessly taking time off from their busy schedules of posting garbage on TikTok to head down to the grocery store. We are talking about a manner of selfish, petty, and self-indulgent purchases. And there are a lot. According to Morgan Stanley, females control the overwhelming majority of spending on luxury goods and services. 90% of designer brand clothing, 85% of high-end accessories and jewelry, and 80% of travel expenditures, and 70% of all dining out. And often the tiny share of purchases made by men in those categories are done to impress and to get women. Essentially, men buy...
Man, Broomstick is a dining out fiend. I don't know what it is, but like, yeah, I don't have, Rehab Room talked about this, where it's like, maybe this is for the worst, where it's like, rehab, and this is what Rehab Room's advice on the topic is, if you're a guy, you're rolling solo dolo, but you still want to go out and do stuff, you can go out and do that stuff, but just know that you're gonna gonna convey that like man who's given up energy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you've given up, like so just be aware, like, you will kind of give off that energy, but also you are allowed to like go out and do things solo dolo, and you are allowed to go out and like not give a fuck. So both are true laws of reality. You know, if you are gonna be a guy going, especially if you're a guy going out and like dining out alone, like, and this is something I do, bro. Like, bro, like I dead ass do that sometimes. I have like some sushi restaurants and stuff in my town where, you know, they run specials, like happy hour and stuff, and I'll go there, and I'll even bring like my iPad. I'll watch like anime over there sometimes and stuff, bro. Like, I'm telling you guys, like, it gets really like if you guys saw me in public sometimes, you'd probably think Broomstick's like a weirdo or something, but hey man, I'm allowed to enjoy my life. You guys are too, man.
80% of travel expenditures and 70% of all dining out. And
but yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'm kind of like doing a self-critique where it's like, you know, if women are responsible for 70% of the dining out, it's like Broomstick's probably overrepresenting. Like, Broomstick's heavy carrying that male 30% load. Like, if there were less Broomsticks in the world, it'd probably be like, you know, women's dining out would probably be closer to 75, 80%. You know what I'm saying? Like, broomsticks kind of like, you know, altering the numbers.
Often the tiny share of purchases made by men in those categories are done to impress and to get women. Essentially, men buy nice clothes, wear nice watches, designer cologne, and pay for fine dining and vacations to get laid. If women...
Designer cologne. I almost want to do like a full video about cologne, but basically, I think cologne's very good to have. It's just, don't think about it'll enhance your looks. If anything, it'll be like a girl who already found you attractive. If she likes your cologne, that'll be like a huge synergy and a nice little boost. And I think it's really bad to be out here if you're buying like all these different clones, like, oh bro, I need to smell all the things. I need a cologne for date night. I need a cologne for my daily wear. I need a cologne for a special occasion. Like, chill out. Like, these things are kind of expensive, especially if you're getting the good ones. And I think it kind of does matter. And women have a stronger olfactory sense than men. Like, they have a stronger sense of smell. So you got to keep that in mind. And I swear, me personally, like, I can smell the difference between a Creed Aventus and like a Creed Aventus clone, right? The Creed Aventus, it has more expensive ingredients. It really genuinely just smells different and more royal. It smells like more like a royalty versus like, you know, a $20 clone of it. Yeah, it captures the same scent, but like you won't smell as good, bro. Like, genuinely, as the, you know, $300 cologne or whatever. And they are, you know, retailed at $300, but there are things out there, discounters. You look up like Aura Fragrance or, you know, any of these like discounter fragrance websites. What they do is they do geo arbitrage. So they'll buy, you know, in a place like Egypt, the ingredients to get something to make something like a Creed Aventus might be cheaper. So, you know, in Egypt, they actually might sell a bottle of Creed Aventus retail at the mall for the equivalent of what is like, instead of 400 USD, you know, like 230 USD or something like that. And, you know, there's the currency arbitrage and all that. And so what a website like Aura Fragrance does is they go out and they kind of play that geo arbitrage and then they sell it back to you. So it's like, you know, you buy if you did want to get a $300 bottle of cologne, it probably is like $150, $160 now.
women did not exist, it is doubtful most men would even bother. Meanwhile, single women dine out and take random trips significantly more often than single men. Because women attach...
But yeah, I'm sorry. One last thing. I think I forgot to interrupt this, but the focus is like find like one thing that like wears on your skin well, and like it doesn't bother you, and you actually like wearing it. So like you enjoy the scent, and the scent doesn't like, it's not too powerful or nothing. It's not like bothering you day to day. It's like you like it, you like having it on. It kind of doesn't bother you. And also if you get like compliments on it, that's a huge plus. And just kind of make it like your thing. And you don't really need more than like, I say if you're going past like 4 bottles of cologne, like you're going crazy. And you should really only be wearing like 1 to 2, really. Like, just my opinion, though. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. But these things are expensive, you know, and like it's a very feminine thing to do, like, you know, what Pearl's discussing and all that. So, but like I said, though, you know, if you're out here and you're trying to do your looks maxing and all that, for a girl who already finds you attractive, it can be a buff. It can be a buff, but it's a situational buff.
Dine out and take random trips significantly more often than single men. Because women attach much more importance to what this says about their social status in their friend group and on social media. And how can women afford it? The truth is they can't.
Yeah, I kind of enjoy like not really going on social media, not posting as much now. I put my I like just being away from social media now. Dude, I think like this is a good point Pearl's making. Is like I don't think women think about how much the whole social media stuff is causing them to like empty out their pockets. Like they go, okay, shit, March is rolling around, spring break, I need to plan a trip, otherwise I'm stuck at home and I'm not posting something for spring break. And then they all of a sudden got to empty out another $3,000 out their account or something.
And while U.S. credit card debt is roughly equal between the sexes, a figure largely skewed by millions of wives putting their largest purchases on their husband's accounts.
If you guys want these like buy now pay later stocks, I think will go crazy. any kind of these like buy now pay later models that are like well reputable. There's one I know about, like Dave, like it looks like such like a scam or whatever, like honestly, but it's such a good business model in the sense that they literally, like, you can't scam Dave because they draw their money from your like income source. When you're, you know, you get the cash front from Dave, but they, you know, like literally people on Reddit say, oh, if you're gonna like run off from one of these like cash forwarding websites or apps, like don't use Dave. But yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say though, is like any one of these like cash forwarding or buy now pay later, like fintechs or something like that, like they're gonna blow up just because of like how bad things are, man. Not any one of them, but you gotta, you know, there's gonna be like a basket of like quality ones that maybe like are better about, you know, running the model. And, you know, but like it's crazy, man. Like you got people Klarnaing like $10 burritos and stuff now. What's going on? And this day, like one of the ones I saw this literally on a Dave advertisement when I was like researching the company, was Dave was talking about the advertisement was like, oh, you know, don't you want to go to that wedding, but, you know, you're short on cash or whatever. It's like, oh, I can't make it to the wedding or whatever. And then it's like, oh, you know, got to take the 500 cash forwarding from Dave. Like, oh, man, that just crack. And it's literally, of course, it's like, you know, a woman in the commercial. And it's like to her, it's this whole thing of like, oh, I got to see my like friends again. And like, I got to go to the wedding, be a part of the event, travel, you know. It's like, so I have to take the 500 cash forwarding. It's just fried.
It is women, single and married, who are 30% more likely to put off debts long term or just not pay them back at all. That's why it always makes me laugh when someone brings up the stat that married men make more money on average. Like, that's a good thing for them. In reality, men need to scramble to get more cash in order to satisfy their wife's spending habits. Essentially, if spending a man's...
And I guess this is part of the frustration, is like the spending habits are just going up. You know, you have to make more money. The whole 6 foot 6 figures, like all that stuff's been aggrandized now. So yeah, and the whole like, oh, love you for you, that's so dead, bro. I can't believe that's even like a thing, bro, now. Like it feels like the way things have been commercialized in 2026 now, like it feels like it's more dead than ever. Like the whole myth of love and, you know, meeting someone who loves you for you, it seems so obvious right now that like love is like a one-way street where it's like, you know, only men can love benevolently, and women kind of just receive love in the form of basically like a one-way road, and they get like a monetary, it's almost like an expected monetary component out of it as well. And that's why I kind of like Broomstick's kind of like dropping out of all this stuff, because it's like that Broomstick was always kind of told, you know, that there'll be someone out there for you and someone will like you for you and like all that kind of stuff. And it's more obvious today than not that that's not true. And I don't even blame myself for believing that stuff, because the world pre like lockdowns and all that was a lot different, and we know it got like a lot worse in certain like phases, right? Like the world before 08, I'm sure, was a lot better than the world after 08. Or you think about the world before, you know, September 11th, before the world after September 11th. And like there's a lot of these moments, right? But I guess what I'm just saying is like, you know, I went through one of those moments. I considered lockdown like one of those moments, and then it's like, all right, well, I don't blame myself for being ignorant, because I was just a part of a different world then. I was kind of like the way I interfaced with the world and stuff like that kind of allowed me to believe that one thing that now I see not to be true. And I have like self-compassion to recognize as like, okay, I was on a false pretense, you know. So like, let me move on with the correct information. Now go about my life.
Money was an Olympic sport, women would come away with the gold every single time and then promptly try to figure out a way to spend it. Another example, according to Nielsen Consumer Insights, women are responsible for the purchase of a whopping 94% of home furnishings. This shouldn't come as a surprise to any man who has been introduced to a woman's pointless collection of 45 throw pillows and a $10,000 couch. Male
Yeah, guys would literally just live on a mattress on the floor if they wanted to. I mean, genuinely, right? And I think about it, some of my favorite days, I remember I told you guys on one of the last streams, I had it was my last video, I talked about Christmas. And one of my favorite Christmas memories was moving out of my first, post-grad apartment in Austin when I had my grown-up job and stuff for the first time. And I was moving out of that apartment, and just how, I'd moved everything out already. And so it was empty, but I had I had the mattress on the floor. I had the gaming set up. I was living life, man. I was living life, dude.
furnishings are extremely utilitarian and cost-effective. Men buy what they need for domestic furnishings at a decent price and leave it at that. Women's homes are the exact opposite. Part of this might have to do with our nesting instinct, but that in itself doesn't explain the vast sums many women shell out.
I think this is interesting. I'm gonna eventually on stream we're gonna watch one of my favorite Crimson Capsule adjacent content creators, and we're gonna go through some of his stuff. And I think something he was saying, I'm not gonna gatekeep him. His name's First Man. You guys can look into his stuff if you guys want. And he is a Crimson Capsuler, so I have a lot of critique to do, as well as praise the guy. It's not like a one-way praising street here, but one thing he talks about is he almost thinks it's better to have a kind of expensive looking apartment, property, home, whatever you got, your nest, let's call it your nest, right? This is for looks maxing, attraction maxing, stuff like that. It's good to obviously have a nice place, but you don't want to personality it up too much. You almost want to keep it nice, clean, and ready almost for a girl to come in, and then you can just let her nesting instincts take over. So his advice is kind of this is right, you're allowed to do your own thing. You're allowed to just say F women, I don't care about what they think, and you just live. And it's not it's not like Broomstick had a lot of girls over at his place in general either, right? So it's but what he argues is forego the whole gaming posters and kind of all those little things, and just kind of keep it pretty simple and almost ready for someone to kind of come in there and do their own thing with the place. Sounds effed up, but dude, they I don't know, they'll be more hypnotized to you because of it. At least while it's your turn, you'll probably get a longer and a better turn out of it because of something like that.
This is more to do with the woman trying to meet an arbitrary fashion standard she saw in a magazine once, or again to signal her social status to others. Bottom line, a difference in male and female taste would be fine if it weren't for the fact, like everything else, many of women's tastes come with a potentially life-ruining price tag. So it's kind of hilarious that U.S. women are disproportionately far left, socialist, and anti-capitalist. Their spending is literally propping up the entire system that they consider to be so evil. Never mind the fact that they blame the rise of such a system on those awful white men. It's hypocrisy in its purest form. Moreover, with women's relentless spending, it's hardly a wonder that big business and government cater almost exclusively to their complaints and interests, whereas men's issues are ignored, while they are treated as a little more than walking wallets and cannon fodder. The whole thing makes a mockery of the wage gap. Anyone who is not willfully ignorant, left-wing political fanatic is probably already aware that respected economists exploded all that wage gap crap years ago. It isn't down to any sex-based discrimination for pay, which would be illegal and has been for more than half a century. It's down to women working less hours, moving into careers with high job security in exchange for lower pay, and failure to negotiate appropriately with private sectors and employers. But even then, 89 cents on the dollar pales in comparison to controlling how 85% of the money in America is spent. Women.
Dr. Wrinkles writes, I'm in the dashboard camp. Chads aren't winning. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think because and this is something even Clavicular talks about this, where it's okay, let's say you're Chad and you just got this match on Hinge of, let's say she's even your looks match, like Stacy Light. So you're Chad, you're maybe, let's say you're a 7.5 to 8 out of 10 facial physiognomy, and you got like the height, 6'2 plus, you got like the good face card, you got money status. So like status could be something like a really good job. So on your like Hinge profile, you have some like lawyer, doctor. It could come in many different ways, right? Maybe you have like a big social media following, a lot of different stuff you could insert there. Or you're from like a really rich family. Maybe you're even a trust fund kid, trust fund baby. You hear about these trust fund kids where they literally they get like a $50K a month stipend from their family, or they're allowed to take $50K out of the trust fund every month, and they get an apartment in like Brickell, Miami. They get a supercar. They do what the fuck ever they want every day. They go clubbing. They bring girls over, whatever. You got status, you got money, your Chad face, all that stuff. So let's say you got it all, right? Even still, this looks matched Becky. Even still, and Clavicular genuinely talks about this, will want to get a lot out of you. So it's like, okay, Nobu sushi date. Okay, maybe you get like a hug out of that. You're still not in the cheeks yet. So now you're going courtside at an NBA game with her. Or, it stacks up is what I'm trying to say. Like the hoflation and all that. Like you guys would be surprised. Like Chads have literally reported that if Chad says I want to have sex with girls, and Chad wants, good looking girls, maybe girls on his looks level and stuff, Chad's going to have to invest money, significant amounts of money, hundreds to thousands of dollars, and then Chad will have to do Chad will have to do like maybe like 3 or 4 dates, amounting up to like 8+ hours of time. Like, think about that, 8+ hours of your time before you're actually in the cheeks. So, but one thing I do want to do is like these Chads, they're having a way easier. So, and what these Chads are doing is they're dating down. So now they're saying, okay, I don't want to invest 8 hours. I don't want to invest hundreds of dollars. Where's the low tier Becky's at, mid tier Becky's, where they date down, and then us, if you're a mid tier normie, high tier normie, you're feeling that pressure now because the Chads are dating down. So that's why I'd agree, Dr. Wrinkles. I don't think the Chads are winning either. I think that in Chad's ideal world, he's having an easier time with his looks match, as in our all of our ideal world, we all are. Razor 82 still have the bottle of cologne I had for my XGF like 13 years ago. I guess I'm wondering if it still smells as fresh as when you got it, because I have I think something I wish I was more careful about how I stored my cologne, because you want to keep it out of like the bathroom lights and stuff. You almost want to keep it in like a dark place at room temperature, so I store it in like the cupboards now. And they keep a lot better now. So yeah, I could believe that 13 years. It still smells pretty good, for sure. They're oils and stuff, so. Yeah, guys, go check out Dashboard's stream, guys, if he's streaming. I didn't mean to stream at the same time as him. I saw he was supposed to go live at 6, so I just assumed he wasn't going to stream tonight. Or, sometimes people put up the notification, but they don't actually follow through. All right, it was good to just kind of see what chat's on about. Try to catch up as much as I could there, but we got still 7+ minutes left on this video. I'll try to finish this before I get off stream.
Women not only spend their own money, they spend more than half of men's too. In short, in this enlightened age of female liberation and glorious equality, women work far less and spend far more than their fair share. As an aside, it's hardly surprising that men on average work longer hours and go into higher risk, higher stress professions. A man's job and income, after all, plays a role in how women perceive him and determine whether he'll get laid. women don't have that pressure in the sexual marketplace. Men, on the other hand, don't really care what women do for work or how much money they bring in. Men.
I remember like there was this, I have this ex, and you could like they resent you. They resent you when they know you're like unemployed. I don't know, like underemployed, unemployed. They resent you when like they have to go to work and you can just chill and stuff. They resent that. They don't like that. They don't like girls. If you go out for dinner, they might do this thing where they like go like, oh, you know, I'll pay the bill. You just get the next one, and they do that kind of stuff. Sometimes maybe it's kind of like, you know, the whole like, let's go Dutch, or like, I don't know, and that's cool. Like you can let her pay for the meal and stuff, but just know that like she's gonna build up some kind of like resentment, or like it's not free. It's not as free as you think. Even if you got a girl who's like paying for stuff, or like, you know, maybe she's working and you're not, or something like that, just know it's not free. It's not as free as you think, buckos. That emotional buildup that comes in a woman when they live that into the stick, they hate that, man. Men, we can tolerate that. Men, we can go to work and she doesn't. I don't know. In certain circumstances, okay to us, especially to blue capsule men. Yeah, absolutely. But
simply just are not wired that way. And another thing, perhaps paying women less should not be illegal, and we should just leave it to the market to sort out. An employer should not be forced to pay a woman the same if she's willing to do less work less hours, or she's ill-suited for the job. For instance, a 5'2", 100-pound police woman earned the same wage as a 6'2", 200-pound man, where the man is going to be more capable of handling himself in dangerous situations. Even as it is, the Equal Pay Act does not apply everywhere. Male models make far less on average than female models. NBA players make far more than the ladies in the WNBA, as they should, because that's what the market dictates. But surprise, surprise, the government is terrible at dealing rationally with the economy. Which brings us to the governmental level. How much in total taxes do men pay versus women? It's not a subject that feminists really like to bring up, and Western governments make it extraordinarily difficult to get clear and reliable numbers. But thanks to the Freedom of Information request in the UK in 2014, we have a pretty good idea. That year, men paid 72% of all income taxes and women paid 28%. That's over 2.5 times more, far outstripping any wage gap, which in the UK at the time stood at 90 pence on the pound. That's pathetic when feminists tell us that they don't need men anymore. And nothing could be further from the truth. At the population level, Western men pay more in taxes than they get back from the government in social services, while women profit far more from various governmental services than they pay into the system in the first place. The conclusion was reached by 4 different economic studies carried out in the United States, the UK, the EU, and New Zealand between 2014 and 2024. In 2022, the IMF concluded that in the United States, men transfer at least $300 billion of their wealth to women via government services every single year. That's in addition to the money and the raw purchasing power men may hand over to women in their private lives. In 2023, the EU tax benefit redistribution study found that the heavy use women make of the government services.
so TLDW, basically Pearl saying that there's a double whammy of, in the private life, you know, there's this expectation of like the man goes out, makes the money, gives it to the woman, she decides what to spend it on, you know. We need to do this, we need to do that. And then there's also this thing that happens called taxes, and then when you get taxed, that taxation rolls back out most heavily into women, overwhelmingly, compared to any other, you know, compared to men or anyone else.
Not only shrinks the wage gap to nothing, it reverses it, with men making 90 cents for every euro that women earn. To be honest, ladies, it's really beginning to look like that women need men after all. All these studies only looked at a limited range of social services explicitly devoted to women. The biggest one being the dole paid out to single mothers. Surprise, surprise. These studies did not include expenditure more likely to be voted for by bleeding heart women.
I feel like we know
US
all
aid,
this,
climate
but
change
is there anything
reform,
else
gay
interesting in
pride
this
events,
video?
and drag queen story time, subsidies, and tax cuts for
I want to see this
quote-unquote
chart, I guess, here,
marginalized
and then
groups
we'll fast forward to
outside
it.
of the home, as 90% of the pre-modern population who were dirt poor often did. It was often supplementary to her husband's work to keep a peasant family from literally starving to death. It's only in modern times where things have radically and disastrously changed. Men have maintained their role of paying for women's stuff, either individually or through taxation, while women are, on a population level, failing their duties towards men. letting their side down as a group with catastrophic results. The fertility rate is in the toilet because women would rather be out girl bossing or slutting it up.
The baby boom peak at 1960. And then that fall off is crazy. So from a 3.5 TFR society by 1975, a 1.7. And it's really never recovered. It's even lower than what it was in 75. We're at an all-time low at 1.5 TFR. In a replacement level, this says 2.0, but I think, oh no, it says 2.1. That's accurate. Yeah, I thought it said 2.0, but the accurate replacement level is 2.1. Man, I mean, that is so dismal right there. I guess I wish she somehow pulled a chart with more data. But yeah, I mean, we all know that, you know, the baby boom post World War II was like a huge thing here in the American society.
During their narrow biological window in marriage, feminists have the nerve to suggest domestic labor should be equal.
And this is part of the reason why I say that it's like, you know, society feels like everyone had like a big party, and now you, Mr. Gen Z, you, Mr. Zillennial, you know, here's a broom, you're expected to sweep up.
Would rather be out girl bossing or
it's like showing up to a party and all that happens to you is you're told, here's a broom, time to sweep up.
Flooding it up during their narrow biological window.
It's over. Party's over.
Feminists have the nerve to suggest domestic labor should be equally shared when the financial burdens certainly aren't, either on an individual basis or on a societal one. And quite frankly, there is no pressure for women to be grateful, loyal, or supportive to their chosen partners in life. In short, there's no reciprocity. And when women do work, it's no longer supplementary to the husband's job or focused on making ends meet for the family. It is obnoxious girl bossing in direct competition to men in the job market, and it serves to suppress the growth of everybody's wages. Two people now need to work full-time jobs to buy the same stuff that one person could have bought 50 years ago. Thanks to second and third wave feminism, we've got an aging population, shrinking wages, and good luck buying a house. In short, feminism has given us a world that is by no means equal, and one that not only cheats men out of their money, but threatens to destabilize the entire economy and degrade the average standard of living for both men and women. The experiment has, well, and truly failed. And who would have thought that abandoning the tired and tested methods of countless millennia in favor of something a bunch of mentally ill left-wing academics invented in the 1960s would be a bad idea? Even in the workplace, many female jobs are worthless and add little productivity and, by correlation, the growth of the economy. Human resources departments and DEI offers add nothing to productivity, and in many cases, it detracts from it. And the list of such useless jobs just goes on and on and on. Corporations have created entire disposable departments just to give women something to do. There's no better example of this than Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter. Musk laid off 80% of the workforce, 2/3 of which were positions held by women. And what was the result? The website kept running. And within a short space of time, Musk was able to introduce a handful of groundbreaking innovations, from community notes to XAI. In the distant past, women were largely kept out of the workforce because of how brutal and physically demanding most jobs were. But it is true, in a modern world of air-conditioned offices, a world that men gave us and continue to protect and pay for, there are plenty of jobs that women can do. And 1 in 1,000 women might turn out to be a Hillary Clinton instead of a Nala Ray. So sure, there are plenty of modern jobs women can do. Whether they should spend their 20s as a corporate branding specialist or an HR manager who adds little to nothing to productivity, or whether civilization has a greater need for them elsewhere. Men are apparently going to wind up carrying women as a financial burden either way, just as they have done for hundreds of thousands of years of history. But in a world where 3 generations of women have been told they are gender traitors and essentially garbage if they choose family over career, and where the birth rates are so low that they are next to dinosaur bones, it is possible that what the world needs isn't girl bosses wasting away their 20s, but wives and mothers. At least then, the fact that the men foot the bill for most of our stuff would at least be halfway justified. But we are a very long way away from that sort of world, if we haven't already lost it forever. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.
Yeah, I guess you said it pretty well there at the end. All right. Yeah, I ain't got much else to add. So yeah, I guess we're going to end it there for now, guys, but we're going to probably come back on here soon. I'm going to try to, I already used I reused the same thumbnail like 3 times already. So next time we come back on here, I'm going to have a different thumbnail. But it's going to be more or less the same stream. We're just going to have some content. We're going to talk about it. We're going to chop it up, and we're going to have a good time. Guys, go please listen to Hell by the Dashboard Light. He is streaming right now. I'm going to head over there right now as I end my stream. And I hope everyone has a good one. Just, take care of yourselves out there. And, what is it? Take the dark capsule and the white capsule daily.